Well, let's face it. We've been waiting for that to happen, and now it finally has. So basically, that's what we're talking about. But what are we going to talk about this week? Your guess is... I don't know. Can somebody say restrictor plate?
Yes, that's the topic of discussion leading into this weekend at Talladega. Not only are we going to be talking about Talladega, but we're talking about issues that we didn't see at Daytona. Daytona, frankly, it was a night race. It was almost middle of the night race, depending on which side of the coast you're on. But you know what? That was a night race. Temperature's a lot cooler. Those engines, even in a pack, were a lot easier to maintain. Now we're going to Talladega, which is in the middle of the afternoon. At the start of May here, the weather is extraordinarily different than it is at the end of February. So what's the heat going to do to these engines?
And
That's a topic of discussion.
When we saw it last year,
Mm-hmm.
how many engines did we have expire last year? It's a real grind, especially with the drafting that they do. There's just a fine line on what's hot and not.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing is, now with these new rule changes, with, the smaller intake with the air, the smaller radiators, everything's smaller. In order to bring this pack back together, it's unfortunately maybe causing a little bit of an issue with these heating issues. We're going to get into that a little later on. Plus, we're going to hear from Clinton Boyer and Martin Truex Jr., who are going to be talking about the issues heading into this weekend at Talladega with everything that's going on. Clinton Boyer's got a pretty cool helmet design. We'll have the story behind that for this weekend in Talladega. And also, the Goodyear blimp and Carl Edwards. There's a little correlation here between Carl Edwards this last weekend at Richmond and the Goodyear blimp. Was that blimp his friend or his enemy this last weekend?
I have no idea.
We'll have the story on that one, too. But right now, there's only one way to really start off the show, and that's with this week's opening lap. Now, we start with NASCAR and an announcement that was made earlier tonight, just a little over an hour ago actually, that 6 NASCAR Nationwide Series crew chiefs had been fined and placed on probation for violations during the past weekend event at the Richmond International Raceway. In addition, the team's respective crew chiefs have also, car chiefs have also been placed on probation for the remainder of the year. Crew chiefs Luke Lambert, Danny Stockman, Trent Owens, Jimmy Elledge, Ernie Cope, and Mike Shiplett have each been fined $10,000 and placed on NASCAR probation until December 31st.
All 3 Richard Childress Racing teams and all 3 Turner Motorsports teams replaced the upper front bumper covers on their Nationwide Series cars Thursday after NASCAR confiscated modified bumper covers during the inspection. Nationwide teams went through inspection Thursday at Richmond International Raceway to prepare for Friday morning and the Friday night race.
Now, Kenny Wallace will drive for RAB Racing in Saturday's Aaron's 312 at the Talladega Superspeedway. American Ethanol will also return as the primary sponsor of the number 99 RAB Racing machine this weekend in this one-race deal.
JD Motorsports, that's the 01 Chevy in the NASCAR Nationwide Series, suffered a total loss to their hauler on Sunday evening when it caught fire at their race shop. There were no injuries, and the tractor was detached and pulled away before suffering any damages. However, their hauler, loaded with equipment, some uniforms, backup parts, engine shocks, and springs for their operation, were at a total loss. The only good thing that came out of it was a primary and backup 01 Restaurant.com Chevy's car. Restaurant.com.
Yes, that's the Restaurant.com Chevy for this weekend's NASCAR race was not in the hauler at the time, and the race shop itself did not suffer any damage as well. I'm Alan Bailey.
I'm Brian Matthews.
And that's your opening lap presented by PitPass.net. Now, again, that's a very unfortunate incident. There's no real cause why that fire happened out there at the shop. But you know what? This isn't the first time that haulers have caught fire. And when you think about it, really, you have a lot of hazardous chemicals in those things. So it could have been a number of things. The fire department's currently investigating, but we'll see what comes of it.
Well, I'm just glad everybody's safe and sound.
That's the important part.
Everything can always be replaced. Bodies
Exactly.
can't be replaced.
Exactly. So everybody made it out okay. And bottom line is those cars will be at the at Talladega this weekend racing. So business will go on. Just unfortunately, a little hit to the wallet there.
Well, it's also funny how in NASCAR, when you have something like this happen, how everybody kind of jumps together to help that person that's down. I mean, they've already got another hauler all set up that they're borrowing from somebody else, and it's all go.
Exactly, and you always have to have a backup plan with these things, and that's what this team's doing. So they'll bounce back. Just give them a little time here. Now, 8 after the hour here on audio8ball.com. We'll take our first break here. When we come back on the other side, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of Talladega, but we're also going to take a look back at racing over the weekend in Richmond. It's the Pit Pass right here on the world-famous audio8ball.com. Why listen to anything else?
Get your kicks on Route 66. Well, it winds from Chicago to L.A. More than 2,000 miles all the way. Get your kicks on Route 66. Well, it goes through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, Oklahoma City looks so pretty, you see. Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona, don't forget Winona, Kingsman, Barstow, San Bernardino. Won't you get hip to this kindly tip and take that California trip?
This is NASCAR driver David Gilliland.
David Gilliland wins in Kentucky.
This is one happy crew.
You're listening to audio8ball.com.
I spent years learning to cope with mental health problems and substance addiction, and I'm proud of myself. But this world today makes me feel like I need drugs and alcohol again to cope. But then all my hard work would just go away.
Don't abuse substances to cope. Get information and treatment referral at 1-800-662-HELP.
I'll pick you up after school. Okay, I got it.
It's easy to take a day for granted. You and your family are connected by routine, and you stick to it. But what if a disaster strikes without warning? What if life as you know it has completely turned on its head? What if your day's routine is disrupted and you can't reach your family? Have you planned for that? Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed. Today, learn how at www.ready.gov. Ready.gov. This message brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Ad Council.
The world famous audio8ball.com. The world famous audio8ball.com. Why listen to anything else?
I talked to countless people throughout the wintertime, telling them how excited I was about this year, how much confidence I had in the job we were going to be able to do. And it's nice to be able to go out and back that up. So it's been a great start to the year.
I don't like, I gotta say it. We've been driving this road for a mighty long time, paying no mind to the signs. Well, this neighborhood's changed, it's all been rearranged. We left that team somewhere behind. Slow down, we're gonna crash. Baby, you were screaming, it's a blast, blast, blast. Look out, baby, you got your blinders on. Everybody's looking for a way to get real gone, real gone.
Welcome back to the Pit Pass, your personal pass For everything NASCAR, I'm Alan Bailey.
I'm Brian Matthews.
12 after the hour here on audio8ball.com. Now, that was Martin Truex Jr. He's living up to that preseason hype. Everybody was talking to him, going into the offseason and during the offseason as well about him being a contender this season. And you look at the last 10 races or so, he's earned the most points out of every other guy in the Cup Series.
Yeah.
Including Tony Stewart.
Well, everybody could see it coming. I mean, the foundation was there. All they were doing was kind of shaving the corners, if you will, off the circle, and he definitely has it rolling right now. But there were no concerns in the offseason. It wasn't like, oh, this is going to be a cut contract year or this and that. Everybody was very positive, saying, hey, you know what, Martin's going to have a heck of a year, and sure enough, look where he started.
Absolutely. We're going to hear more from Martin Truex later on in this hour, as well as Clint Boyer. Looking forward to Talladega this weekend. But right now, what were the coolest moments of the weekend? That's what we get asked. What were the best moments? And it's Richmond, it's short track racing, it's beating, it's banging, it's boom, boom, boom. It's a very action-packed weekend out at Richmond, so there's only one thing that we can do in order to count down some of the best moments. It's this week's Top 5 from Richmond. Number 5.
A new and very well-known player takes to the Nationwide Series stage tonight. 11-time X Games gold medalist Travis Pastrana.
Man, I'm nervous for sure, so it's going to be a heck of a race.
Travis Pastrana running in 29th position.
Thanks to the pit guys, I'm now ahead of both girls in the race. Thank you. Good job, crew.
I expected to do worse. I had hoped to do better. I'm on the long-term program, and hopefully my sponsors stick with me, and we'll see what happens.
Number 4.
Junior's drought is the longest since the Dust Bowl days. Let's see if he can run down Kyle Busch.
Kyle's been pretty good on the short run, and that's all we got here.
Tonight, Kyle Busch scores his 24th career victory, 4 in a row for the Spring Richmond race.
That's what I'm talking about, guys. Thank you.
Number 3.
Paul Menard's crew loses a tire that was caused by a tire that had been left in the pit by Jimmy Johnson's team, and some of that jostling and shoving around in the pits was between those two teams. Jimmy Johnson, all that strategy has gone for naught. Now they're right next to the Menard's crew, who is pointing, calling the official over, and tells the official, he goes, I know, remember what happened earlier between those two.
Number 2.
Joe Gibbs Racing's 18 with Denny Hamlin, Kurt Busch in brother Kyle's 54. Here they come to the checkered flag. Who's it gonna be? Hamlin sliding it sideways. Give it to Kurt Busch. Woo! Way to go, guys! Woo!
For the first one for Kyle Busch Motorsports, this is amazing. When you're driving for a guy named Busch, you got to be on it, and I'm happy to deliver tonight.
Number 1.
And we're getting ready to go. Tony Stewart doesn't go.
That's the second time I've seen that happen tonight. The car just kind of lunges sideways when he tries to go.
How about this black flag, Carl Edwards?
Black flag right here.
NASCAR telling Bob Osborne, Carl jumped the restart.
Check on that, man. We were the leader. Did we get the black flag because we beat the 14, or did we get the black flag because we went early? They say both. Both? How can it be both?
I got the best start I could get. Looks like Tony waited or spun his tires. They black flagged me. I still don't understand why they black flagged me. They said we were the leader. I restarted the best I could given the disadvantaged position I was in. If they're saying that I jumped the start, that'd be real frustrating because I started the same way I've started all night.
Carl Edwards, the number 1 moment was that jump on the restart, man. I mean, it was certainly controversial.
It was controversial, but we looked at that tape 3 or 4 times yesterday, and it was pretty obvious what he actually did. So
yeah, so
I think he can rest well now, knowing it's not going to change.
Yeah, but that's the thing is again, it was like the number 1 thing yesterday. It wasn't the great finish in the Nationwide Series. It wasn't Kyle Busch doing 4 in a row in the spring. It was, or the fact that it was an all Busch weekend. Yesterday, it was Edwards.
Yes.
All day yesterday.
All Carl, all the time yesterday.
Exactly. And it was really clear that first, he wasn't the leader. Second, even if he was the leader, he jumped the start.
Right.
And he would have been black flagged anyway.
And we both think that he got off easy just doing a drive-through?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with that because, you look at it, he really, really did. He could have done a stop and go, which would have cost him at least a lap or two. He could have been held for a few seconds, which NASCAR's done before. He could have had to do 2 pass-through penalties, which would have put him at least 2 or 3 laps down. He finished on the lead lap. He finished 10th. Yeah, he didn't get the win, but at the same time, guess what? He's still in contention here. He's still got a top 10 finish out of that night. So, that's something that needs to be taken away from this.
Well, Carl's very consistent. And we've said all along, those drivers that are the most consistent, it's not really the amount of wins that they have, but where they finish consistently. And, we talk about Dale Jr. now, and now everybody is beginning to talk about Dale Jr. again because he's racing consistently. Had a number 2 finish last week. You can just see how he's beginning to come to life. And that's what they're looking at today. You can go through and you can win 8 or 9 races and actually not make the chase if you have 8 or 9 DNFs. Go figure.
Yeah. And that's the thing that we have to remember and we have to take back from this is, it's all about consistency. NASCAR is trying to change that, though. They're trying to award more points to wins. That way you don't need to have that many top 10s and top 5s. But you go back in the 60-plus year history of NASCAR, consistency is what wins championships. And that's exactly what this year's winner has to do. Now, Tony Stewart last season wasn't consistently junk for the first 26 races of the season.
And then came to life.
Exactly. But guess what? In those 10 races, he was what? Consistent. He consistently was running in the top 5, in the top 10, consistently winning. He won half the races in the chase. And guess what? He walked away with the title at the end of the season by a tie, but he was the tiebreaker because he had those wins. So that was the difference. That's what we need to remember. It's about consistency, not all about those wins. Now, I do want to remind you that over the next couple days here, as we get ready for Talladega, we're going to hear from Dale Earnhardt Jr., Carl Edwards, Jeff Gordon, Kevin Harvick, Jimmy Johnson, and Matt Kenseth, just to name a few. We're also going to hear from the nationwide side as well, from Danica Patrick and Elliott Sadler, coming up tomorrow and on Thursday, leading up to the Talladega race over the weekend. Now, Clint Bowyer, or no, not Clint Bowyer. I don't want to talk about that right now. What we got to talk about right now is an issue we didn't get to yesterday. Something that happened in the Cup race that made our top 5 moments of the weekend.
Made something else?
Yes, besides, the Busch drama and the drama with Carl, it was the actual issue with the tire rolling out between the number 27 of Paul Menard's crew and Jimmy Johnson's crew. What basically happened was a tire got away from Paul Menard's crew when Jimmy Johnson's crew interfered with it. It's not on camera whether it was kicked, whether it was rolled, whether it was pushed out onto pit road intentionally or what happened. We don't know. I wasn't there. There was not a camera there. We don't know what happened. We just know it was somehow interfered with by the Jimmy Johnson crew, whether that be intentionally or unintentionally. It happened.
Well, of course, somebody kicked the tire, okay?
Sure.
We can say all the disclaimers in the world. Okay, somebody kicked the tire.
Yeah. But basically, it caused this tire, and it was the tire they were changing. They were going to put on the race car, not a tire that came off the car, but a tire that was going on, that was knocked onto the middle of pit road. What does the crew for the number 27 Chevy do? Well, that front tire carrier, he runs out onto pit road, snatches that tire, completes the stop. Was it, I'm going to ask you before I continue, was that a good thing or a bad thing?
From a safety issue, I would say that'd be a bad thing. I don't think that would be. I think you're asking for more problems there.
Exactly. I agree with you, and you're absolutely right. It was a huge issue. Now, if I'm a crewman, I got to finish my stop.
Correct.
I don't have another tire right there in front of me. I need to go get that one that's right over there.
Correct.
But at the same time, you don't just run onto an active pit road with cars zipping by at 50 miles an hour
not unless
and
you
think
want
it's okay.
Yeah, not unless you want to get run over.
Exactly. And
hence, that would be the exception, getting run over part.
Yeah. And, crew chief Slugger Labby on the number 27 Chevy, he came on the radio and said flat out, hey, you guys do that again, you're not going to have a job with us anymore. Don't do that. It's very dangerous. And I can appreciate the guy who ran out on pit road because he wanted to get his job done. He wanted to correct a wrong that was done. I can appreciate that. But he put himself in harm's way. And if he were to get, if a car were to come by, especially at the point, the place on pit road where he was, it was at that curve. So a driver comes around the corner, he can't really see that guy there.
But, looking at it from his eyes, what do? You've got your adrenaline is pumping, you're trying to get things done within 15 seconds. Something gets away. I could see where, your first response would be to go get that tire. I could see that. What do you do other than wait and stand there and for 5, 6, 10, 15 seconds while they get you another tire to mount?
Exactly.
I don't know.
I
I appreciate safety wise it's not good, but my gosh, put in that position, I don't know exactly what I would do.
Yeah, and I get you there, but something that we have to recall and remember is that it's safety first in NASCAR.
Yes.
It really is. Now, here's the thing. If I'm a crew chief, I don't think I would get mad at a guy. First off, I'd be upset that a tire, rolled onto pit road. I'd be upset about that. But I don't think I would be upset at him because he didn't run out and go get that tire. I'd be upset at him if he just kind of stood there and didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you jump back over the wall and grab another tire and then run out there, yeah, I'm okay with that. But I think I would be frustrated with him if he ran out onto pit road because that caused a lot of problems for NASCAR. And NASCAR kind of looked at that 27 crew after that and kind of went, you better watch yourself from the rest of the night. So, I think what was interesting is when Jimmy Johnson's crew, again, the rule is when you take off the right side tire, you have to roll it back and place it on the wall, or at least have it physically stop there. You can't just take it off and roll it and hope it stops. That's a NASCAR rule. Jimmy Johnson's crew did that. So an official saw it. An official was standing right there and saw that. But what does the crew for the number 27 crew do? Hey, they call him over and say, hey, look at this. You see the NASCAR official nod, hey, I got it, and wave his hand up and down. That kind of, it was kind of like, they're, making sure that Jimmy Johnson's crew got busted for that. That kind of stuff. First off, we don't see that happen that often in the pits.
It's pretty petty.
Yeah, it really is in the grand scheme of things. And what's interesting is in the pits, the guy who you're pitting next to, you're there all day. Yeah. So you don't want to aggravate them. You don't want to get them upset. And oh, by the way, you have to see them for another 37, weeks going on through the season. So they're there. They're going to be in the garage. It's a very tight-knit community. There's a lot of people there, but everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, but there's a lot of personalities there, and they're, I can imagine when some of them get their pit assignments going into the race, there's some that are a little more charged than others.
Oh, yeah, and you look at it, and really there are some crews, hey, I'm next to so-and-so. That's great. I love working with them. Oh, I'm next to so-and-so. Oh, I don't like those guys. They're slow, man. But that everybody on pit road, it's like a community. It really is. I don't think that there's any comparison to these guys to anybody else, really. There's no really good comparison here because when a guy goes over the wall, everybody's watching everybody. You have to be very vigilant when you jump over that wall on pit road for a number of reasons. But if you're just sitting on pit road, literally you're sitting on the pit wall and the guy next to you is pitting, then guess what? You're keeping an eye on them. You're watching them because something could happen and, you want to be vigilant. But, if a tire starts rolling away, maybe I'll stop it as a crewman who's just sitting on that wall. Or, hey, if there's something going wrong on the pit stop, maybe I'll point it out to him next time. Or if, I think that there's something that could cause danger to somebody, I'm going to point it out to them because I don't want to see those guys get hurt as another crewman on there. But that's the kind of relationship that most people have with other crewmen that go over the wall. And to see an issue like this, it's kind of weird, it really is. Because while everybody's out there, they're competitors, at the same time, they're all going for the same goal. To get the job done as quick as they can, as safely as they can.
I don't know. I can remember as being a kid doing something like that so I could gain the advantage. I'm not going to lie to you.
You were just an evil kid, weren't you?
I'm not going to say I was evil, but I also liked every advantage I could get. I think that's fair. But no, I think we all did. You just don't see it at this level because it is something petty. It's something you're probably not going to see again. And that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
But I think everybody's done that at one time or another in their life.
Yeah.
This just they kind of got caught. Kinda.
The thing that we all have to remember too is this isn't just, local Saturday night short track racing. It's NASCAR Sprint Cup Series racing that's televised in prime time
to millions and millions of people.
Exactly. Not only in this country, but in over 50 other countries as well. So it's something we have to remember and we have to recall. This isn't just going to go away next week. It's something that's, I can guarantee, I can Google it right now and it'll pop up on YouTube or something right now. That clip's probably up there right now.
Yeah.
In a few different forms. So that's something that, these crewmen, they have to think about in the back of their mind.
Well, and that just adds a little bit more to what we're looking forward to this weekend. That we'll just add another element to what's going on, just another reason for somebody to bang somebody.
Exactly. It's Talladega, which means I think if you actually look up Talladega,
go real fast.
Yeah, in Old Latin, it either means go real fast or the big one. Not sure what the translation is on Talladega in Old Latin. But you know what? It goes back to, those days, and it's something we have to remember. Now, got to take a break here. When we come back on the other side, we're going to hear from Clint Boyer and Martin Truex talking about not only their seasons up until this point, but talking about what's going on in Talladega this weekend, and what does Carl Edwards have to do with the Goodyear blimp?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Good, bad, or indifferent? Huh?
Coming soon after this break. You're listening to the Pit Pass.
Joey Logano wins at Chicagoland Speedway.
Hey, this is Joey Logano, driver number 20, Home Depot Toyota. You're listening to audio8ball.com.
What is one NASCAR Unites wristband capable of doing? It can inspire a child to go farther in school. It can construct a brand new playground for kids who've never had one. It can introduce a child with a serious illness to his or her favorite NASCAR driver.
I'm Tony Stewart. I wear my band to Unite for Kids. Band together with me by logging on to www.nascar.com/unites to pledge your support.
Hello, car of teenagers. If you don't mind, I'm only going to broadcast this out of the speaker on the passenger side so we can talk without the driver listening in. Okay, now that we're alone, we can talk about your friend's driving. It's okay, he can't hear us. Now, I'd never say this to his face, but he might be the worst driver in the history of the world. You should say something witty. Make a joke about the airbag or something. Hearses are funny, too. You could make a joke about hearses. I better say something to the driver real quick so he doesn't get suspicious that we're talking about him. Still talking to the passenger. Not about you at all. Just going to be one more minute. He is totally going to get you killed.
Find other interesting ways to speak up against reckless driving by visiting our website at speakuporelse.com. Because it doesn't matter what you say, just say something. Brought to you by the Ad Council and speakuporelse.com.
There comes a time in every man's life when he has to say, you know what? I don't care.
audio8ball.com.
Just blowing up the engine's not the biggest problem at the end of the race. If you get together too early, when you start getting hot, you're losing all your power, so you're losing speed too. So it's kind of a fine line there between getting together with somebody too early and waiting too long. So a lot of it's a little bit of luck. I mean, there's times when you want to get to somebody and you can't. So it's just one of those deals where you have to be in the right place at the right time and hope it all works out.
Half a mile an hour and I started staring at the passengers and waving goodbye. Can you tell me what was ever really special about me all this time? But I believe the world is burning to the ground. Oh well, I guess we're gonna find out. Let's see how far we've come. Let's see how far we've come. Well, I believe it all is coming to an end. Oh well, I guess we're gonna pretend. Let's see how far we've come. Let's see how far we've come.
33 past the top of the hour here on audio8ball.com. It's the Pit Pass, your personal pass for everything NASCAR. I'm Alan Bailey.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Matthews.
And that was, Martin Truex Jr. right there talking about the dangers of Talladega. And he brings up a good point. If you get in it too quick, bump drafting is a way of life at Talladega and Daytona. And if you're doing it too quick, he's right. You heat up that engine, you get it into the red and into the yellow there too soon. And guess what? You put yourself in danger, you start wearing those engine parts, and guess what? You lose power early on.
And that really hasn't been more evident within the last couple of years when we've really seen the engine temperatures getting hot, especially with the advent of the bump drafting and having to go running almost 4 in a line down the straightaways there.
And that's the thing is you look at these cars, how they're set up. NASCAR built them thinking safety. They wanted to make the racing better, but they were thinking, okay, we got to get it safer here. We can't have drivers getting hurt left and right.
We don't want cars going any faster than is safe.
No, and let's be all honest. It was, a number of things that happened, but the real nail in the coffin that made NASCAR stand up and make a difference was the death of Dale Earnhardt Sr. in 2001. And it's a shame that it took that to happen, but it really opened NASCAR's eyes a little bit wider. It was Superman finding his kryptonite, literally. And after that, NASCAR started putting a lot of time, effort, and money into research and development of this new car. They came out with it. They decided to put a wing on it for not only aerodynamic purposes, but frankly, basically to touch the younger generation. Who soup up their cars and, lower it and the Fast and the Furious stuff and all that stuff. They were trying to reach that generation. I give them applaud for that, but something that they didn't think about was when this race car turns backwards, it's a plane.
Yeah.
That's a giant wing. And that's something we need to consider going into this weekend at Talladega.
Well, it's going to be open. It's going to be wide open racing. I have a feeling we're going to see the same thing that we saw at Fontana. They're going to be bunched for about 3/4 of a lap, and then they're going to spread out and they're going to take off. I have a feeling that we're going to see much of that.
Yeah.
That's the way it's been so far this year. I don't see a lot of caution penalties.
No. And that's going to be interesting because I agree with you. I don't think that we're going to see the big one. I really don't know if we're going to see the big one. Really, when you think about it, because everybody's just driving so much smarter this year because they're giving everybody so much more respect. These drivers are the best in the world. I don't necessarily think we're going to see that big one.
But this might be a good week for Dale Jr.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a racetrack that he can tame.
Oh,
if he's in the right mode.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing is, with Talladega and Daytona, it's not so much if you have a good run. In my opinion, there's about 20 guys who have a top 5 run. But they're all up near the front at the same time, and when they're all doing that, not everybody can be in the top 5.
Yeah.
You can be, one of the fastest cars on the racetrack, be second in line, and frankly, be 15th. That's how,
quick.
Exactly. That's how bunched up these cars are at Talladega and Daytona. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that cars who have a good run, like Dale Jr., can be up near the front, then all of a sudden somebody behind him gets a push, 10 cars pass him on the outside, he winds up 10th. That could happen in the closing laps. And let me rephrase that. It doesn't need to happen in the closing laps. It doesn't need to happen on the last lap. It needs to happen coming off of turn 4, coming to the line. That's when really the winning car really prevails is coming off a turn 4, getting past pit entrance and going through the tri-oval. Because if a car moves too quick, he's going to lose the race because of how momentum at this racetrack works. It's about timing. Some guys have figured it out. Clint Boyer figured it out. Kevin Harvick has figured it out. Definitely. There's a reason we call him Mr. Where Did He Come From? Now, some guys who haven't figured out the timing, Jeff Gordon. He used to be king on super speedways. He hasn't won one in a little while now. Ever since these new cars came around, he hasn't won one. Another guy who really hasn't figured it out, Jeff Burton. He lost this last Talladega race because he was blocking. He let Clint get on the outside, and Clint passed him on the outside. Now, it was side by side at the line, but ultimately, we remember that Clint Boyer won that race and Jeff Burton did not.
Well, you know what I'm surprised is we haven't seen a fiery Jeff Burton.
That's the thing, is if you go back to the 90s, he had some...
He would have been in your grill.
Exactly.
And I don't know if this is the mature Jeff Burton, but, you know, in the old days, he'd come get you. And right now, again, he is playing more of a team player role, but he's got to be frustrated by some of his finishes.
Absolutely. You look at Jeff Burton, you go back to the 90s when he first came on the scene. He was in that number 99 Ford. There were 3 main guys that were always contenders in the 90s. Obviously, Jeff Gordon, Mark Martin in the 6, and in that 99, it was Jeff Burton. Those 3 drivers were almost every single week finishing in the top 5 consistently, and almost every single week winning. I would keep an eye on Jeff Burton. I think that he's been with the 31 team long enough because he was bouncing around a little bit there.
He certainly
didn't know where he was going. He ended up at RCR, and then, hey, he was in this car, then that car, then this sponsor, and this crew chief, and a lot of things were changing. He's had this crew chief and this crew combination for a few years now. He's gotten comfortable. I think now it's just a matter of getting their ducks in a row, crossing their T's, dotting their I's. I think it's going to happen this year for Jeff Burton. I really do. It's just a matter of when.
But he's another one that we're looking at. I mean, he's on that short list of guys that should have, that haven't yet. Okay? Jeff Burton, certainly on that list.
Absolutely.
Junior, certainly on that list. Martin Truex, certainly on that list. Trevor Bayne, if he ever gets a sponsor, would be on that list.
Yeah. Another guy who I'm putting on that list as of really the last 5 races last season, this season, Martin Truex Jr., who really has come alive here in these last, really I want to say 15 races. The team has gelled.
He's matured.
He really has.
He's not making any mistakes.
He really has. And here he talks about restarts here. Listen to what Martin Truex Jr. had to say here. He was talking about restarts and the fact that drivers basically are playing mind games with one another on restarts. It's Martin Truex Jr.
There's a lot of games played, and normally it's the guy in second playing the games, laying back on you. Sometimes they try to keep a nose ahead of you. Sometimes they start to speed up, try to get you to go when they want you to go, so they're prepared for it. Really, what it's all about is trying not to get jumped. But obviously the restart lines are clearly marked. As a driver, you can't go before that first double red line, or you're probably going to get penalized. Not in every instance, but 90% of the time. I mean, if you go a foot before it, they're probably going to let you go. But you need to be close to that line. But there's definitely some gamesmanship going on there. Guys trying to get a jump on each other. Obviously the leader's trying to get the best jump, and the guy in second is trying to get to the line next to him and hopefully have more momentum when they get there. So that's just kind of the way it goes.
And that's Martin Truex Jr. right there. And you know what? Maybe he's right there. Maybe there are some mind games going on with some of these restarts here. I think there is. I think that you go back to restarts in the 1950s. Guys have been messing with one another on these restarts.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's part of the gamesmanship that goes on. I mean, that's just the other facet of the race, and you got to start well. Obviously, you have to finish well. You got to go through the pits well. Well, 1/3 of that is restarts and coming out of the pits. Because when it's going to happen, typically that's when we are going to see the big one.
Yeah.
When we're all bunched up, we're 3 wide, then we're 4 wide, then we're 5 wide, then we're a mess.
Exactly, and that's something that we need to keep an eye on.
No, I'm sorry, but I'm sure there's a lot of gamesmanship. It's like a football team, making a play. I mean, okay, we've done it this time 3 times. We better change it up because I'll know what to expect. Very much the same way on a restart. So I can see, other than it was pretty obvious that we spun our tires.
Yeah.
Perhaps it wouldn't have been so. God, look so bad.
Yeah.
But on that restart last week, tires spun and tires gripped, and you can see what happens from there.
Yeah, and I want to let's go back. Let's go back to pre-2000s when we were lining up in single file with the lap down cars on the inside. It was a little simpler then because, the guy on the inside, he couldn't jump the restart. He had to let the leader go. And frankly, those cars were a lot slower. They were a lap down for a reason. So they kind of fell back and the guys on the outside kept going. But something that was interesting is the leader controlled everything just like he does today. He or she does today. But it was a little bit more cut and dry. You couldn't tell if that guy in second was jumping it before the leader because guess what? He was behind him. He didn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
If he jumped it too quick, he'd slam into the back bumper of that car, and there you go. But that was the thing, is you had leaders who were gunning it, slow down, gunning it, slow down, gun it. It was playing mind games. That's been going on for generations, literally. Now there's an issue because for the last 10 years or so, we've had the double file restarts, and really it opened up a whole new problem of who gets to the line first, who gets on it, first, and it opened up that can of worms.
So what's the remedy? We go back to the old way?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I think that what's being done now is the correct method. It gives the drivers more of an opportunity to get their spots back on the racetrack. It gives a lot more of that excitement for the fans, and ultimately it's better racing. It bunches these guys up. It allows them to actually get more spots, gain more or lose more on the restarts. I applaud NASCAR. It's just, like you said, another part of the game. That's all it is, and that's all we need to remember when we're talking about it. Now, about 15 minutes here to the top of the hour, we'll take our final break here. When we come back, we'll hear from Clint Bowyer, Martin Truex Jr., and why Carl Edwards doesn't like that Goodyear blimp right now. It's the Pit Pass right here on the world-famous audio8ball.com. Why listen to anything else?
See where you might think this was a highly organized group, but trust me, it's not.
Audio8ball.com.
What is one NASCAR Unites wristband capable of doing? It can inspire a child to go farther in school. It can construct a brand new playground for kids who've never had one. It can introduce a child with a serious illness to his or her favorite NASCAR driver.
I'm Tony Stewart. and I wear my band to Unite for Kids. Band together with me by logging on to www.nascar.com/unites to pledge your support.
Beer can turn this night into a party. Beer can turn this night into a good time. Beer can turn your kids into problem drinkers. Give your kids beer, they may never be the same. Give your kids beer, their whole life may be changed. Give your kids beer, they may not be ready.
Beer for those memorable moments when you introduce your child to potential alcohol abuse.
Remember that the younger he starts drinking, the more likely he is to abuse it. Don't give alcohol to your kids. To learn more, visit www.foryourchild.org or call 1-877-767-8844. A message from Mothers Against Drunk Driving and the Ad Council.
Whoa, a real live robot. Or is that some kind of costume?
Bite my shiny metal.
Audio8ball.com. It doesn't look so shiny to me.
Shinier than yours, meatbag.
As far as the start line, I mean, there's a double line and a single line. You got to start somewhere in between it. Carl's my buddy, but he definitely got antsy on that restart. Unfortunately, the Goodyear blimp was in the air and showed it really, really bad. Had that camera angle not have been on there, it probably wouldn't have looked so bad.
And there you go. It's the Pit Pass right here on the world-famous audio8ball.com. Clint Boyer right there basically saying it's the Goodyear blimp that did it.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Edwards and the Goodyear blimp folks not really happy right now with one another, I don't think.
Really? Just another camera angle.
I think, you know what? Clint might have, or rather Carl might have had a case. That line is kind of hard to see with the angles that they had on TV, and then they whipped out that Goodyear blimp camp, and uh-oh. There it is. Game over. There it is, right clear right there, that Goodyear blimp, I don't know how many times that Goodyear blimp has made everything so clear.
Well, it's just, in the old days at those races, if you had 5 or 6 cameras at the entire race, it was huge.
It was, you have 6 cameras?
Yeah.
Wow, beefing up coverage.
That was really big time, and now you've got if you got 43 cars, you got 43 cameras on top of 10 other cameras.
Yeah, no kidding.
On top of the eye in the sky.
Somebody told me that when we were down in Daytona for Speed Weeks, for the Fox networks, over 150 cameras. Are you 150
on one race?
On not only one race, but one track. Granted, it's Daytona.
Sure.
But I mean, really, when you think about it, you could put a camera on the roof on the front stretch, and you could watch the entire race through that camera.
Mm-hmm.
In retrospect, you could, but including all the on-air, the cameras that were in the cars for all 3 series, the cameras that were on pit road, up in the stands, up on pit road. All over the racetrack, 150.
Wow.
Good God. God.
Well, it's our Super Bowl, so
That's
if you were
very,
gonna
very
figure,
true.
that would be it.
That's very true, and that was for all of Speed Weeks too. So that was the Gatorade races, or rather the Bud Shootout. It was for the dual races. It was for the NASCAR Nationwide truck races, and of course our Super Bowl, the Daytona 500. So I guess that kind of does make sense now that you think about it that way. But still, 150. My God.
Plus all the other folks that have got cameras in their phones that send that stuff to YouTube.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
Make it go viral. Could you imagine if you added that number in?
And that's what cracks me up is when we had that 2-hour rain delay for the Juan Pablo Montoya incident at Daytona. This is what's hilarious is cameras were not allowed for the first hour and a half on the backstretch. A lot of the people who were covering the races said, "Hey, can we send a reporter out there?" Drivers were literally getting out of their car and just kind of, joking with one another. A reporter said, "Hey, can I go back there?" NASCAR said, "No, the track's closed. Closed to reporters. You can't go back there." Finally, they let up after about an hour and a half and said, "Yeah, go back there." And we got to really see these, cameramen who went back there and were, catching some of these cool stories and stuff that were going on back there. But the bomb that kind of ignited that was Brad Keselowski tweeting the picture from inside of his race car. And from there, you saw a few more videos that popped up online. One, fan who was actually sitting on the backstretch, not too far from where those cars stopped, he whipped out his camera. He recorded a few funny incidents. My personal favorite, nobody knew this happened until this fan posted this online, frankly. But when the cars first stopped, the drivers didn't get out.
The typical, everybody kind of sit and wait.
Sit and let's see what happens here. But the second those engines stopped, one driver got out. You know who it was? Kyle Busch. And what does he do? He makes a beeline straight for the infield, and you're thinking, what is he doing?
He's going to the bathroom.
He ran into a porta potty. He ran straight into a porta potty. Took care of his business.
How opportune is that?
He didn't even go where the walls meet, so he could just run right in. He hopped the wall. He hopped the wall.
He was on a mission.
Exactly. He hopped the wall, went into the bathroom, did his business, hopped out, literally ran the width of the backstretch and the infield, back into the car, strapped in. That didn't happen. You didn't see that. And shortly after everybody gets out, the coolest video out of Daytona wasn't the crashes, wasn't the fire. To me, it was it was Brad Keselowski and Dale Earnhardt Jr., who were near the front. They literally get out of their race cars and they start casually walking to the porta potty. And then they kind of start walking next to each other, and then all of a sudden they start walking a little faster. And next thing you know, they're on a full-on sprint to the porta potty. Hey, these guys are competitive, man. And now Junior wins, of course. But I thought what was the coolest was you got to see those drivers do that, and you actually got to hear the crowd, which erupted.
Oh, sure.
They were cheering just as if Dale Earnhardt Jr. took the lead under green flag. I mean, that was the coolest part. And that's probably one of the coolest videos I've seen at Daytona in a while. And that's saying something. So,
hey, do we have any emails?
We have a couple. You reminded me. We do have a couple. Didn't get a chance to read through them all, but we can get two in here. Got one here from Mike in North Carolina.
Hey,
it
Mike.
Reads, guys, Denny should have moved Kurt. He had the better car, and Kurt would have done the same thing to Denny if he was on the high side.
Okay.
Hope it's the last time we see a Busch in Victory Lane in the Nationwide for a while. That's from Mike in North Carolina.
Okay, Mike.
Well, here's the thing. He's referring to the Nationwide race on Friday night. I don't necessarily think that, Denny or Kurt would have moved each other. They didn't. They know the relationship with Kyle, is there. So I don't think that either one of them would have raced dirty. Really, they wouldn't have. If it was for a cup race, maybe. But it's the Nationwide series. It's for more or less, it's for fun for these guys. So they're just out there having some fun. They don't want to cause issues that'll come back and bite them on Sunday. So, I think you're wrong, Mike. I think we will see a Busch in Victory Lane quite soon. We saw a Busch in Victory Lane Saturday. So I think we will see Kyle or Kurt go back to Victory Lane in the Nationwide Series before the end of the season. A few more times each for that matter. I think that car is going to come on fire here in the next few weeks here. I really do.
You're making a prediction.
I'm predicting that one.
All right.
You can take that one to the bank.
Rowdy will be back in winners and victory circle there.
Yeah, and I didn't do this by chance. Another Busch email here from Nancy in Florida.
Hey, Nancy.
Hey. Will Kurt's win in the Nationwide give both Busch brothers and Kyle Busch Motorsports the extra push to win? That's from Nancy in Florida. I don't really push. I guess.
I think they have the desire. That's why they're there.
Oh, absolutely. I guess.
I don't think they need
motivation. I'm guessing motivation is what she means.
Might be.
I'm assuming, but I mean, first off, these are two drivers that don't need a push. They're both extraordinarily competitive, especially with one another. I think that it's going to give them momentum for both Kyle Busch Motorsports and for Kyle Busch specifically. If you don't believe me, just look at what he did on Saturday in the Cup race. But I do think it's going to open the floodgates for Kyle Busch Motorsports, not only in the Nationwide, but in the Truck Series. They've been struggling a lot with Jason Leffler in that truck, mechanical issues, just plain out bad luck in that series. That's going to turn around real quick, I think. So we'll see what happens here in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, again, I don't think it's so much motivation. These guys are motivated by winning.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line. In fact, it's not even a money thing. It's a points thing.
Yeah.
It's, I want to win.
Yeah, exactly. And we got about 30 seconds left in the show here. So want to remind you real quick, you can check out tonight, Raise the Praise with Sabrina Johns coming up at 7 p.m. Pacific. That is 9 Eastern? No, that's 10 Eastern. My times are mixed up. I also want to remind you that you can check out my new music show. I'm going to push this here. You could check me out tonight at 8 p.m. Pacific on our sister station, 90.1 Mount Rock and MountRockRadio.com. And, of course, we have time for one more plug here. You could check out Brian Matthews tomorrow morning on The Morning Climb at 8 a.m. Pacific on 90.1 Mount Rock.
That's right, tomorrow after 8 o'clock.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. We're going to be back here tomorrow, same time, same place. We're going to be talking Talladega tomorrow and hearing from a number of drivers, including Clint Boyer, Martin Truex Jr., Jeff Gordon, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. For everyone here at audio8ball.com and the Pit Pass, I'm Alan Bailey.
I'm Brian Matthews.
We'll see you at the track.
So long, everybody.
Audio8ball.com, a service of Mount San Antonio College.
Walnut, California.
Audio8ball.com.